Good evening. This is the Elliott Wave update for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 for Monday, April 22nd, 2024. Markets made a decent recovery after last week's downside action, primarily in the NASDAQ, but we did see it overflow. We saw that the S&P came down, the Russell came down, and the Dow all by itself managed to close fairly higher, did a nice little rally. But in the S&P, we also saw that the put wall at 5,000 in the SPX was broken. We saw the put wall in spiders get broken. We saw the put wall in the ES get broken. We saw the put wall in the Qs get broken. And the Q was at 420. And so what we now have seen today is kind of just a little bit of a reversal of all of that. We saw the SPX close back above that put wall, which after it was broken, we saw a lot of sellers kind of coming in and stacking them up right there at that level. And that remained pretty much over the weekend as well. So coming in today, there still should have been strong resistance at 5,000. So it kind of came up there, played around, got through it, traded pretty well above it, but now SPX is back down, closing at 50.10. So, but the futures market now back above, being bought up. We still got some earnings coming out today, and so all that'll get mixed in and reflected. So being that we're in earnings, that's really going to keep us on our toes, I believe, because primarily we saw a lot of Friday as due to Friday's expiration. It was the April monthly expiration. There was just a lot of things that were going to get slaughtered and get taken out, and that occurred. And now it would appear, since they are selling the VIX, that they're just turning around and putting those positions right back on. And I'm like, okay, so that kind of leans more towards, if you remember that on Friday when I made the big picture update, I was discussing that both, I have two preferreds now, so I've kind of eliminated one. I'm down to just the two. One would suggest that on Friday, actually, no, the low, which was on Thursday in Globex, I believe, yeah, and Globex Thursday to Friday was the low, and that then marked the completion point for the minor fourth wave. So now if that was the case, then we need to be building higher in a minor fifth wave, which will consist of 5 waves of minute degree, and we'd be in that first wave of minute degree. And if you remember what I was talking about, if and when that would be the case, that the market needed just to hightail it, just needed to go and not turn back, not have any of the, not play, just go and keep going. It only happened for about an hour and a half today. I mean, it would appear that it really was much longer, but the market didn't just kind of climb and climb and climb and climb and climb and just keep climbing until the afternoon session. And then it's where they started to really kind of move back in and, selling the VIX, buying the volatility and all the underlying. And in particular, yes, they were buying NVIDIA, they were buying Meta, they were buying Apple, Mag 7. Here we go. Now, whether that's in anticipation or expectation of what earnings may or may not bring, I don't know. But it was a fairly strong move back in that respect. And let's take a look here at the S&P. I'm on the hourly chart. So nothing really has changed. I'm still marking this as the high and the finishing point for everything up to and including the primary B wave. So that would suggest we're in a primary C wave, or the very beginning stages of a primary C wave, which would be a minor wave 1 to kick the whole thing off. Inside of minor wave 1 are going to be 5 waves of minute degree, of which we've done 1 and 2. So it puts us into minute wave 3, which will consist of 5 waves of minuet degree. They build 1, 2, 3, 4, and still needing that 5th wave. That's under this particular side of the count, which is what I brought back in and presented again on for Friday and then just left it and picked it up and dealt with it on Friday afternoon for the big picture. Now, with that one still in place, we came up to, let me just kind of go back and talk about, we're going to be just putting those fibs back on here. See, 382 for a fourth wave, right? We're inside the minuet degree. We're finishing up the minute third wave. We did 1, 2, and 3 on a minuet basis. There's wave 4. We're looking for a wave 5 down, completing minute wave 3. We get another 4, another 5 down, and then we're done with minor wave 1. And then we get a minor wave 2 correction. So it's just going to be stair-stepping. We're just going to walk this thing down, but we're going to see our larger periods depending on where we are in the whole scheme, right? Where we'll get those slides, where we'll get the stronger selling. And it likely will increase as we move along, and we're in now larger third, like a minor third or an intermediate third. So don't forget that within the whole primary C wave, there are 5 waves of intermediate degree, of which we're in intermediate wave 1. And actually, we're at the very beginning. We're in minor wave 1 of intermediate wave 1, etc. So we've got quite a lot of trading to the downside yet to come if this count is in force. If it isn't, and it's going to be the minor fourth wave, which still has a lot it has to do to be more convincing, I continue and just start pushing up through all this resistance and start to form a definitive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or even to get minute wave 1 of minor wave 5. So we still need this. It's got to be stronger than I believe in what I'm seeing thus far. Market can change all that tomorrow. We'll wait. We'll see. But right now, what I've done, I came up to the 382. Now I'm like, okay, it looks like it was a fourth wave, A, B, C. Okay, so that worked. Then we're starting to come off again. That works. So what could it be revealing is that maybe we're going to be heading down, even though here we go. Got to buy it, got to buy it, got to close this in the green. We can't have it closing lower. And so if it does, then it's still going to be a little touch and go in terms of which one is in force. So let's go over the support being reached here for a fourth wave. If that's the case, then we're looking for it to continue to move lower. Now, where is our support? Well, 618 is at 5,008. That's just basically coming down and retesting that low that we had this morning. So that may provide us some support, 5,008 down to 5,003-ish. And then, but in terms of completing a minuet fifth wave, no. Now, it could come down to here 100%, where wave 5 would be equal to wave 1. That's the most common. And that's at 49.65. Or actually, it's, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, 49.65. Whereas last week's low, the low of minuet 3, is 49.61. So, but that again does not take out that low. I'll tell you what, if it got down there and then turned and just went off on a tear to the upside, then I am going to probably put it in as 5 and minute 3, and we're racing up in a minute wave 4. That would be one take. Otherwise, we come down to the 1.618, which is the next one. Most common, next most common, or least common. In this case, here it would be a gigantic failure. So I'm not even looking for that. In fact, I likely would. I'm not sure why that does that. See, it just is really. Yeah, I'm going to remove it because it's. I'm not sure what between my mouse and my screen, it's just doing some very, very strange things. So let me try if I can do that again. Down to here, put it over to there. Come on, right there. And now what I want to do is edit. There you go. I want to take that out and then say Okay. Because I just don't, it doesn't fit. There might be some support there, but that's about it. So we're looking for this to, if it didn't, indeed, if the 4 is complete, I'm looking for that 5th wave down. And you're going to get some support here, and you're going to get additional support here. All it absolutely needs to do is put in a new low below 49.60. We start doing that, whether we get to all the way down to 1.618 won't necessarily matter. What would be more important is the structure coming off. If I can count 5 when we're hitting new lows and we're into that 5th and counting it right, then it may just be done. And then we'll be looking for, again, another 4th wave. So it'll be another ABC up. We're doing 5 down now to complete this 5 waves. And then we would do another ABC up and another 5 down to complete the minute sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll work out those fibs as, of course, as it occurs so that we know what we're doing. So right now, in the 1 version, it looks pretty clean that it's a 4 and we're going to come back down. That's in favor of version that the highs are in, and we're now working on the next one. Cyclically, that also fits. So does a wave 4, by the way, right now. But the wave 4 would have to be real quick. We still have some cycles, the shorter term versus like the 3-month versus 1 month versus like 3-month or 6-month. And if we start looking out at those, then the picture does not necessarily get rosy, because what will happen is the shorter ones, yep, they might start their up cycle, the up move, as the cycle is rising, and that'll give us a decent bounce, but it's working against a larger, which is going to be putting pressure on into May, down into May, starting of June. So there was a couple of more stronger pressure pushing going to the downside coming up on a cycle basis. So if it is a minor 4 and we're going to race up, that's the key word, folks, race. We need to get it. We need to go. And that likely would be kicked into gear if we get some solid earnings reports out of some of these bigger players that are coming out this week. That could change it. That could bring us back in and pull all of this going up. And then we're down into the end of April, the beginning of May, and then we get Apple, and then we get the balance of the May reports. And that could be the one they're like, oops, that didn't work. And we just slide back down into the end of May. So cyclically, there's the odds, you're trying to weigh it out, just like, oh, could, couldn't, could. And it's the same thing with the Elliott. Is it going to be the minor 4? Is it really going to be that we're starting in this first minor wave 1 down to kick off the whole thing? I'm leaving the minor wave 1 down in place like we're kicking off the whole thing. And if it is a minor 4, it's still out there, folks, but the longer it takes to take off, the less probability. So they start to slip on that probability scale. Moving averages, they're all still mixed up, a mosh pit sort of. But I'm going to go out to the daily because that's really the more important one that we look at for. There's the 200 sitting way down there. That's actually, when it comes back down, that's the one that everybody will be honing in on at 48.55. That is the 200 period EMA on the daily chart. Coming off of that, we've got the 50, not necessarily turning. We still have the 13 and the 20 heading down, but now the steepness at which they were falling has kind of relieved itself a little bit. Now it's kind of a little bit wants to go flat, and it would, if this continues higher, you'll see them all go flat until it got up and started to break, and then they would follow on a rally. So that is the S&P. Let's go over and take a look at the NASDAQ, which, had some decent moves today. I got to say, it did have some decent moves. And once they started to buy, you see here, it started a little bit later. Here it started at 11 a.m. And they just kind of came in right after they drove it lower. It's just like somebody goes ding, they ring a bell, and the buyers just go, oh, it's our turn. And they came in and they didn't stop. They didn't stop. They didn't stop until 3 o'clock. So in the last hour, we started to bring it back down again. So it's kind of interesting. Yep, I used that word again. Sorry. But here in the NASDAQ, it's basically the same count. So I have minute 1, minute 2, and then we're starting to break down into within minute wave 3. And we have minuet 1, 2, and 3. A, B, C, 4. I'm going to put it there. But you see, it did fall. But, you know, it needs to go a lot further before it disqualifies itself from any further upside. So unlike the S&P, the NASDAQ just barely peaked above the 0.236 retracement level. Now that, if you were watching, if you were trading this, you're like, wow, this is strength. Look at him go. Look at him go. 17,404. So it ended up doing over, 300 points from Thursday's low, excuse me, Friday's low to today's high. It was over 300 points. So that's quite the turnaround, equivalent of really what it fell. So this is the interesting part. But again, I'm looking at going, if we're looking at it as a wave 4 correction, well, then, yeah, ABC, we start to go back down again. But here again, that's what I was talking about before. It was nothing more than just, okay, we're going to change all this up. And now we're going to sell the volatility via the VIX and buy the underlying, which is all of our stocks, via ETFs or just via, they go in with the options, and the individuals, they're buying that volatility. And that's like, okay. And that would be more in line with this low being a fourth wave, being a minor 4. Now, can I squeeze that out? If I'm thinking that this is A and this is B, and then we have 1, 2, this could be 3, 4, 5. It really could, but I'm just not doing it. But if it had to, what suggests then here is this is ugly, but 1, 2, 1, 2. And basically, NASDAQ, that means you have very little, if any, room to come down. You really need to turn and go up from here and not stop. That would give support to the fact that I can put a minor 4 there, and we're now just going to keep going. So it breaks all these resistance, right? Which is just basically set up for this internal move. But we'd be breaking above any resistance levels, and we'd be breaking above price resistance, just below, but getting back above 18,000, getting back above 17,500, 700, 8, et cetera, all the way up. And then we would be looking at much higher. We'd be looking at close to 18,000 to 900 to 19,000. And what I could do is, once again, we'd be looking out over, we'll look at our 4-hour chart, and we're going to be, if this is minor, I got to come down to here, and you run it from there to there, over to that low, and that gives you your tickets for going up. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't feel 100% certain that that is the case. It's still out there, though. Again, on a cycle basis, and what happened on Friday, particularly here in the NASDAQ, was it really broke down a lot of things that shouldn't have broken if there was stronger upside still to be coming out. And that, you take a look at today and you're just like, this is getting, again, strange, at least to me, because it almost feels like that the marketplace is not necessarily making any sense in choosing. I mean, just kind of what path are they taking here? What are they really attempting to do? What was Friday? You know, what are they doing again today? So again, it's just kind of strange, but we're going to let it go. You got to go with what the market's telling me. And right now, I'm kind of going to stick with the fact that it's all done. And let me just go back out to this one to show that being the 5 and the 5 and the C and the B right there. I know I moved those over. So that high at 18,709, that finished it all, at least for now, right? Because I'm looking for that primary C wave to finish a cycle 4th wave, go into cycle 5th wave, and those highs will definitely be taken out. And we'll be going above 19,000, likely going above 20,000 before all is said and done. But that's out there. That's not next week. It's not next month. It's not 6 months from now. That's out there. Right now, if we have a lot to deal with here externally, you know, so not market related. But right now, market's focus is back on earnings. Now, if any of them come out and they aren't pleasing, well, then we're going to get big turns again. They're going to turn it back around again. Again, what I said tomorrow, Tesla, tomorrow after the close, good old Tesla will be on the line. And I think a lot, just to kind of speak on Tesla, you know, Elon Musk got Tesla's board to go before the shareholders at a shareholder meeting, or sent them something that said, hey, you know, do we want to go ahead and just pass this? And so that Elon Musk can get his $56 billion payout that court took away from him. And the response that I think what was happening in the stock last week was like, no. If you do that, we're all going to get out of the stock. You and Elon can have all the stock and see what you want to do. But I think it would lose the backing of a lot of the shareholders, big and small, if they decided to do that. Anyway, we'll see, because the stock did trade under 140 today. That's quite the turnaround, folks, for Tesla. Back at the ranch in the NASDAQ, if we get something bad from Tesla tomorrow, then I would suspect that if we're down here, then we might go lower. Then I'm going to have to reassess everything. But I'm not expecting stellar earnings from a lot of these companies that people are thinking are going to just come out and smell like a rose. So once again, we're going to see. So I'm going to leave that 4 there. That suggests that we go down. If we come back above, we still could run up to 17,584 and call it a 4. That still could be. So I'm leaving this open, and this is, probably should put a question mark next there. I'm putting it there because I think if we get a break here, then that's where it will stay. And if we get that break, then what I'm looking for is for it to come under 17. And then let me put the next set in. And so we're looking at 100% 17,050. So again, not a ton of damage in over and above what we saw last week. Just move down, finish this. It's not that one. It's going to get rid of that. It's going to be that 5th, and they're going to be the minute 3rd. But if it's going to run full gamut and we got 1.618, then it's 16,803. So that all still fits as well on a cycle basis, just on a market basis and just continuations. A lot of things that kind of back up that we should continue to drop. We're now approaching the end of April. So if we were going to have this bounce, we need to do it, because the cycles would go along with it and give support to the market rising. But that only goes for a little while, because immediately after that, we got the other peak coming in on the longer term cycle, and that's going to start its downside pressure. And that might overwhelm any upside that we got coming. All right, so that's the NASDAQ. I'm going to go out to the daily. Let's take a look at those moving averages. And here we have the 200, which is the next one up here as well, 16,852. And we've got these guys, yeah, they're all kind of turning over. That's the daily. So they're going to need to go up and take them out to get them to turn. All right, so let's also take a peek what we got coming out this week or coming out tomorrow in terms of economic. We have the S&P U.S. services and U.S. manufacturing PMIs and new home sales. So at 9:45 a.m., the S&P flash PMIs, and then at 10 a.m., new home sales. So both of those services PMI and the manufacturing PMI showing a little bit of a rise in both. Now, Wednesday, we have durable goods. Thursday, we have GDP, initial jobless claims, trade balance, retail inventories, pending home sales, etc. Most of that coming at 8:30 a.m. Friday's the big day. Friday's the day where we get to see we get the news on the PCE. And again, that is basically the index that the Fed holds near and dear to their hearts before they use to make their decisions. So again, tomorrow we have S&P flash, both services and manufacturing, and new home sales. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. The next update will be on Tuesday, April the 23rd.